Okay, there are many things that need to be said here, but I want to concentrate on the Rambam Perek Sheni Halacha Gimel. Going a little bit out of order in this, but I think this is a very fundamental insight that I'd like to share here in Chuva. Does everyone have a Rambam Perek Sheni Halacha Gimel? If you have a Rambam, please get it because it's fundamental to see the words here. Hilchos Teshuvah Perek Sheni Halacha Gimel. Now, let me just say the following before we begin. That it's well known, and I'd say Murgala Bapuma Da'ama, this is what most people say over. But Chuva has three parts to it. One of them is Charata al Avar. I'm just going to, I'm sorry. One of the parts of Chuva is Charata al Avar. You regret the past. Another part of Chuva is Kabbalah al Asid. I make a commitment to the future. And the third part of Chuva is Vidui. And this is what people say are the three parts of Chuva. Make sure you do Charat al Avar, Kabbalah al Asid, and Vidui. And then you've taken care of your chet. So I just want to ask before we look at the Rambam inside where this all comes from, what would be the logical order here of this? What would you do first? What would you do second? What would you do third?
I would think it would be Charata, Vidui, and then Kabbalah to speak out the problem, and then the Kabbalah is going forward.
Right. So it's like there's a Seder over here, right?
Yeah.
The first you're Mischaret. Oh, yeah. What did I do? I don't even know what I do here. And now I'm not going to do it anymore. Or better, like you're saying, Vidui.
Speak it out. Yeah.
And now do something for the future. That would be the logical order. So there's three steps in that order. Now let's see what the Rambam says. Kola misvada. I'm sorry, halacha beis. Did I say halacha beis? Halacha beis. Umahi hatshuva. Perek beis, halacha beis. Umahi hatshuva. What is Chuva? I got, the Rambam should have said this in Perek Aleph, halacha Aleph. Define your terms before you're telling us to do Karbanas and Sarah Mishtaleach and Yom Kippur and Korban and the 8 things that we mentioned. Mahi Chuva, what is Chuva? But he says it here, Perek Sheni Halacha Beis. What is Chuva? Now let's just read it and then we'll go back over it. Hu Chuva is Yazav Achote Chetoi, that the Chote leaves his chet, V'yasir mi machshavtoi, gets it out of his mind, V'yigmar b'liboy, Shlo yaseu oid. Shenemar Yazev Rasha Darkoi. So it seems like step one is you decide you're not Kabbalah al Asid. Step two, V'chein Yisnachem al Sha'avar, also have Charat al Avar. So it sounds from here like Kabbalah al Asid comes first and Charata al Avar comes second. Counterintuitive. Ki achrei shuvi nichamti. After I do tshuva, I have Charata. Nichamti is Charata, like Hashem had by Nochem Hashem al kol asher asa. That by the Mabul it says Hashem had Charata for making the world. That's Lashon Nechama. V'yoyid alav, and then the Rambam throws in this rough remark. V'yoyid alav yodea talumais, and I guess it's ad kedei that Hashem himself will testify that I'm not returning back to this chet. So is that part of Kabbalah al-Avar, Kabbalah al-Asid, or Charat al-Avar? Hashem's doing a testimony here. Shenemar, How do I know this? The Rambam says, "Shnamar v'loy oid, like noimar oid, Elokeinu lamasi yadenu." When Hosea gave Musar to the people, he said, "You should do Chuva, and Hashem will not call us chaitim anymore." So that's where the Rambam. I don't think it's a Gemara that says this very rough remark of Yoid Alav Yodea Tolom. It means to say, like, in other words, who's okay? We'll do Chuva because we spoke Lashon Hara, but who's going to really say that I'm never going to speak Lashon Hara again? Like it's a Yoid Alav Yodea Tolum. So until Hashem says that, you didn't do Chuva. And then lastly, which you would think would be firstly, Tzarech Lisvados B'Svasav, you have to say Vidui. V'loymar in Yanis Elu Shenigmar Shagamar B'Libai, and say and articulate Vidui, all the things that I've decided in my heart. So that's the source of the Rambam, that Chuva is Charat al-Avar, Kabbalah al-Asid, and Vidui. Everybody with me? So I would like to posit that it's completely wrong shot in the Rambam. I don't think that's what the Rambam is saying. I don't think that's what he means. And I don't think it's, I think we need to read the Rambam and let the Rambam speak to us and see exactly what he means. And here, if you give me your full attention, open up your hearts, you'll see that the Rambam is saying a whole different process here. Not the one that's always said necessarily. The Rambam, let's read it. So now let's read it again. And this time, let's use your pencil. Umahi hatshuva. What is Chuva? Number one. I think there's about 7 steps here, not 3. Number one. Hu sheyazov hachoyte chetoi. First step is I stop doing what I'm doing. So first of all, like Chuva doesn't begin until I have azivas hachet. Meaning we're not. You can't rehabilitate somebody until he's first. The first step is stop doing the chet. I mean, let's say somebody, comes and says, like, I have a terrible anger problem. So what's the first step? Well, why do you have that anger? Like, the first step is stop getting angry. Like Lamaisa, like you got to do something. Maybe somebody once told me a story, Big Gvir, that he had a tremendous problem with swearing. Like he just nivelpad. That was like a big problem. It was a very famous rich guy. So he said that some Chabad rabbi came to see him and asked him for money. He said, I have a terrible problem with swearing. What should I do? So he said that what you should do is that every time you catch yourself swearing, you should give $1,000 to tzedakah. So this Gvir, this was actually, I don't want to say who it was because I don't want to say he was swearing, died already. But this Gvir like threw the guy out of his office, like, you're using my swearing as a way to make money for your, that's the way he looked at it. But what he was suggesting was like this behavioristic thing. You get an electric shock every time that you swear. So he asked me, what do I think about that? I said, I think you should give $1,000 to the Palestinians every time you swear. Okay. Neither one of them.
This first step, it's unclear what to actually do, because it may not be in front of you. Let's say the issue is to not swear. Well, if you're not angry, you're not going to swear. If the issue is machalos asuros, so if you don't have tray food in front of you, then it doesn't come up. So hu sheyazov chote cheto, what does it mean exactly in practice? It means that you didn't do tshuva if the scenario didn't come up, and this is the first step according to the Rambam.
No, forget about the scenario coming up. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that azivas hachet means that behavioristically, lamaisa, the tshuva process begins, and this is the chiddush. This is not the end game. This is the beginning. When your first resolve is, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. No more cheeseburgers. No more anger. No more drugs.
So it's a mental activity, not a physical activity.
It could be a physical, it could be mental, but there's an aziva. let's call it physical. You're not going to do that anymore. Let's say you're living. Let's say somebody's living with somebody they shouldn't be living with, right? So the first thing is azivas achet, like get out of that house. Let's say somebody's having an affair, God forbid. First step is stop the affair. Like we can't begin the Chuva process, the Chuva sessions until there's azivas achet. But you have there step one of the chet. Let me go a little further, give it context. I think that requires a little one next to it. Number two, the yasiru mimachshavta. Okay, I could have gotten it out of my lifestyle. What your chet of choice? It doesn't make any difference. What but you're thinking about it all the time. Like you're still obsessed, with the chet. So maybe technically you've stopped, or you've changed yourself, or you're giving yourself a penalty. You've done something, but I've gotten out of my life in a way, in my maisa, but I haven't gotten out of my machshava. So here the Rambam sticks in here, step two of yasiru machshavta. You're still obsessed with the chet, whether you're doing it or you're not doing it. Step three, v'yigmar b'liboy shelo yaseu. Look what happened here. We're going from maisa to machshava to leiv. See what happened here? V'yigmar b'liboy shelo yaseu. And then I do a gemiras halev. Now what is that? That's not only do I stop doing it, but I really have resolved. I have resolved that not only am I not doing it and I'm not thinking about it, but I went even deeper. I went from my maisa, like, did you really resolve? I went from my maisa to my machshava to my leiv. V'yigmar b'liboy shelo yaseu. And on this, the Rambam brings a pasuk. Shenemar yazev Rasha darkoi. That you could stop doing the chet. It's mashma, like you could stop talking lashon hara and stop thinking lashon hara, but you're still about lashon hara. Until you have a gemiras halev and that inner change has been made, you have not become a different person. So this, the pasuk says, the pasuk in Yeshayahu, yazev Rasha darkoi. You must leave the derech, and then the Rambam goes further with me, darkei hatshuva. So you have right away three steps, which are not the three steps that everybody talks about.
There's a common comment that in order to solve a problem, you have to first recognize the problem.
Right.
Recognizing the problem is half the solution. It's a common idiom.
Well, again, every 12-step program starts with, I acknowledge that I'm an alcoholic.
Exactly. So here, there appears to be a step missing. Before he stops doing the wrong thing, there appears to be something missing. Recognize what it is. Maybe the word is vidui. Call a spade a spade. That should be the first step.
But it's not. But it's not.
It's not.
Not only it's not the first step, but it's the last step. Vidui is the last step. So so this is the chiddush of the Rambam. So let's let the Rambam speak to us. What the Rambam saying here is the first step is, let's take the example of alcoholic. Look, you want to go through a process. The first step is not even acknowledging it. Just like right away, first of all, I don't want to talk to you until you don't drink for 2 weeks. You are an alcoholic. You're not an alcoholic. You think you're not. I wanted to see you go. You're not coming into my office with alcohol running through your veins. Stop drinking. You're thinking about it all the time. Okay. Second step. Yasiru machshavta. This is the new 12-step program, the Haber Rambam 12-step program. First step is stop doing it. Second step is stop thinking about it, because you can be an alcoholic, as alcoholics in an AA like to say, like, I am an alcoholic, even though they haven't drank for 50 years. So why are they an alcoholic? And the answer is because it's still in their mind. They're still obsessed with it. So Yasir Machshavta, get it out of your mind. Okay, what else do you want me to do? No, it needs Yigmar Beliboy Shalei. I take it from your hand, or in this case, your mouth, to your mind, to your heart. So Yigmar Beliboy, now you need a heartful decision, which we can discuss in a minute, but that's the next step is lave. And here we're already becoming Torah-dic, because the Torah recognizes that there's a lave. Okay, that's three things. What's the next thing? The next thing is, hold on a second. I've already stopped doing the chet, stopped thinking about the chet, stopped, and I made a decision. So I did everything, right? No, you didn't do everything. Now, yisnachem al shavar, let's call it yischare. Now I have to crawl back into my past. That says the Rambam. Yisnachem al shavar, and deal with. Let me put the question this way. Why did I do that? What would have caused me to do that? Now, why do I have to obsess over this? You stop doing it and finish. The answer is because the Chuva or the rehabilitation process has not been completed, or it's not been completed, or it's not even on its way to completion, unless you figure out what was going on inside of me, or what is going inside of me that's causing me to do the chet. Now, I just want to, that's a fourth step. Yisnachem al sha'avar.
It's different than Gemar Belibo. I mean, it's different than Gemar Belibo. You have to come to terms that even though I've decided I'm resolved, you have to really look back on it negatively.
Cheshbon nefesh. So I was Gomer Belibo. Listen, I'm never going to do that again. This is not the question. I'm never going to do that again. But the question is, why did I do it? So why is this important? Because, listen, because it's not about the chet, it's about me. In other words, the chet in this case becomes a symptom to what kind of a person am I? Am I a good person, not a good person? So if you want to call yourself a Baal Tshuva, there's a certain interchange that has to take place. It's not just like, well, I don't kill anybody anymore. There's a certain deep interchange that has to take place. So that interchange is beyond V'yigmar B'libai. It's actually going back into my past and dealing with it. I just want to say, like in current, I'm just saying it as a mashal, not a psychologist, but in current psychological understanding, which goes almost back to the Freudian idea, but on a much more sophisticated level, not talking about like averas now, but let's say problems in relationships, by and large, discovered have something to do with something in my past. In other words, like let's say I'm arguing with my partner, so you can try to deal with that issue. Like, okay, so how do you deal with it behavioristically? Don't come home, close same bed, force yourself to say compliments, all kinds of things you can do. But you haven't dealt with it really until you're Gomer Belibo, but until Yisnachem al Shavar, which is a very deep thing. I'm asking myself, why do I have this problem? And from a psychological point of view, well, maybe it's because I had a trauma in my youth. Maybe I felt abandoned in my youth. Now I'm looking for my husband or wife to solve my abandonment, or maybe I was abused as a youth, and now I'm looking for, who knows? The brain is very complicated. But the Yisnachem al Sha'avar, my point is, I'm not trying to teach pop psychology here, but what I am saying is that the Yisnachem al Sha'avar is don't suffice with the fact that you're never going to do it again, or you've solved the problem in that regard. Go further back, which might be enough, by the way, for a relationship. But it might even not be enough for Hashem. Okay, not doing a chet. But it's not enough to say that I am a resolved person. I'm at peace. I've discovered what it is that's causing me to do things that I don't want to do. And I'm yisnachem al shenamar. And this the pasuk in Yirmiyahu says, Ki acharei shuvi, I've already done Chuva. After my return, nichamti. I'm dealing with that thing in the back of my brain, like that, or that the trauma or the something. By the way, these things are not even necessarily somebody's fault. It could be could be your parents' fault, could be God's fault, nature's fault. I don't know. But the point is, until you take care of it, you haven't grown to Chuva.
The diuk of the Rambam is also quite interesting. He doesn't use the word v'yitcharet. He doesn't say you should regret. He says yitnachem,
which is amazing.
You have to find personal comfort level. You have to be comfortable with yourself.
Brian, back up a second, because I want you to explain to us. Hold back up for a second. I want you to explain to us how is it that nechama, which is a word for comfort, like nichum avelim, is the same word for charata. So what you pointed out, the Rambam himself says in
we see in Parshas Bereishis by Hashem.
That's what I said. So nechama means comfort. It's hard to believe it's two completely separate words. Nichum avelim, and nechama also means charati in the Chumash, as we pointed out. So and you find a few places in Tanakh that v'nachem means regret, and sometimes it means comfort, which seem to be on the surface opposite. How does that work? You want to try to explain that?
What the Rav is saying about, for example, with Nichum Avelim, a tragic occurrence has happened. By trying to understand perhaps the context of it, why, how, etc., that can be a comfort to get over that tragedy. And maybe the same thing with a chet. If we understand why we did it, why it happened, what brought it about, then that enables us to get past it, and that's the nechama that we can take from it.
I have a slightly different take. I think in this sense, the Rambam is, I think what he's saying is, you first have to forgive yourself if you expect others to forgive you. If you expect Hashem to forgive you. First, deal with it within your own soul and forgive yourself for your past transgressions.
I'm not liking the term forgive yourself because it sounds too easy, although I know what you mean. But first, fix yourself. In other words, first deal with it yourself before you expect Hashem to forgive you. Meaning, like we're saying the same thing. So again, how is nechama? What's the connection between nechama and nechama? So I have to say something like this. I believe this is true. Maybe even Rav Hirsch says this somewhere. I don't remember. Maybe they're in Bereishis. But you have to say this idea that if I have done something terrible, and I'm talk about myself, but I speak to people that have done terrible things. If you, I was even a prison chaplain, but if I have done something terrible, and I'm not going to do it again, and I've decided I don't even think about it, and it's not in my mind, and I'm not going to gomer belibo, but I'm still plagued, and here's the key word. I'm still plagued and discomforted by the fact, discomforted, my key word, by the fact that something made me do it. So if I was a Christian, I would say, well, the devil made me do it. But this was not the devil, this was the devil within. What made me do this chet? And this will discomfort me for the rest of my life, because what is it in me that would allow me to hurt somebody? So now it comes out that the yisnachem is not just to have charota. The yisnachem is a much deeper thing. Yisnachem is to make peace with the past, to make the past, the present, and the future all one. So I've taken care of the present. I have a zivas hachet. I've taken care of the future, for that matter. I'm not doing the chet anymore. But now I'm going back and I'm saying, what is it? Take it out of your system and say, what is it? Deal with it. And you're in a way comforting yourself, but that's not the point, that you're comforting yourself. You're making peace with the fact, you're using it, you're taking it, and you've gotten it straightened out. So the yisnachem is, this is if you're a good person, which we all are. This is a like the ultimate therapy, or if you will, or the ultimate Chuva, is when I can find the shirish of the chet and even if I'm not doing the chet anymore, I'm taking care of that shirish, which I believe A is never mentioned in the Rambam, but B, I think without this, ultimately the chet will come back. Or ultimately, I'm a chote, even if the chet doesn't come back. Because there's and so you say, well, what does Hashem want from me? This is what He wants from me, exactly this. You brought me to reach this type of shleimus, do this type of zichuch, and the shleimus is only if I can go back and be misnachem al she'avar. Now, so how many steps do we have here? First of all, Azivas hachet, Asir mimachshavtai 2, Yigmar belibo shlo yasei 3, Yisnachem al she'avar 4. We're up to 4 steps of Chuva. Now, the Rambam says, and this is I also believe, and I look in all the Mefarshim of the Rambam, and I don't want to say that they're reading it wrong, but I don't think I'm reading it differently. Let's put it this way. In tall order. And who hears this edus? Is this like Yotza Basko V'Yamra Eliezer ben Durdaya Muzman Chayev Olam Haba? Is that what we're talking about? Like Yoid, there's some kind of an edus from Hashem. Haggadah edus. I think that the Rambam is, and I don't even know where he gets this very beautiful poetic lashon, but I want to make a diuk here. The Yoid Alav Yodea Tulumis can't be part of my tshuva process. A. B. The Rambam should have said Yoid Alav Yodea Asidus. He who knows the future knows that I'm not going to do this chet again. Mazat talumot. He knows I'm not going to do it again. So how much tshuva, that's the way everybody learns. How much tshuva do I have to do? How much charata do I have to have? How much kabbalah abba do I have to have? Ad sheyoid alav yodea asidos. So first of all, the Rambam doesn't say ad. So it's not a shiur or a medida in the amount of charata that I have to have. He doesn't say ad. What the Rambam is saying, hear me well. What the Rambam is saying, if I do these things, azivas hachet, hasar mimachshava, gmiris halev, nechama ala avar. If I do these 4 things, then you are a changed person. And then I've actually gone through a process where I'm a changed person, and there's a metzias here. You don't have to hear this voice. That even Hashem who knows all deep hidden things, talumos, will say edus that this guy is not going to go back to that chet because he's a changed person. So the Rambam's not telling you a new shiur and shuva, which is almost an impossible shiur and shuva. No. And if it could be even that, like it's impractical to think that I'm never going to talk lashon hara again. I don't know. But if a person goes through these 4 stages, this is not just superficial tshuva. A person goes through these 4 stages, then b'metzias you can know Hashem, God Himself will tell you. He knows all hidden things. Like people don't know if I'm changed or not. If somebody tells me they became Baal Tshuva, take their word for it. But Hashem knows, yes. So Yodea Talumas, who He knows my Maisa and my Machshava and my Leiv and whether I've taken that bug out of the past and have killed it or used it or whatever you want to do with it. He would say Edus, this guy's clean. He's never going to get angry again.
I guess it seems to be based on your current situation. Like the 4th step seems to be like an additional, like tigbor, like chizuk. Like I decided what to do, but to do it right, you have to do, give nechama on the past. Okay, I'm at peace with it. So Hashem, who knows what's in everybody's heart, you leave a little piece of it. You didn't have charata on. If you didn't have a gemira shlema on that piece, because he sounds like he's predicting the future based on your current matzav. I don't know what it is when things are going to come.
No, that's exactly correct. In other words, am I healed? For God's sake, you're healed. You are healed with what you went through here, going from this the external most aspect of it of Azivas Hachet to the deepest aspect of it of Yisnachem al Shavar and the Seder of the Rambam that we asked at the beginning. What's the Seder of the Rambam? So Avram said right away what everybody says. Well, obviously, first you have Charat al Avar and then you have Kabbalah al. Like, forget about all that. First, you do the external thing, kid stuff. Then you go deeper. Then you go deeper. Then you go deeper. So it's 4 levels of depth, and the order is Kafter v'Ferach.
Rav Haber, just according to this shot, why does the Rambam use in the first piece the Chuva Gemura, and then in this piece he only calls it Chuva? Wouldn't this be more appropriate to call this then Chuva Gemura also, or a continuation?
If you look in the first halacha there, he says Ezui Chuva Gemura, but he ends up saying that the order is fair, but if he ends up saying that's Zehu Bal Chuva Gemura. So there he's describing the person as the Bal Chuva, and here he's describing the process of Chuva. And the process of, and another reason, like in Halacha Aleph, which we didn't learn together, he's testing the process. Okay, so Isha, so I bedafka like skipped it, but there he's talking about who's a Bal Tshuva, and here he's talking about the process of Tshuva.
And Rabbi, there's another question which maybe dovetails on this is, let's say, so a person goes through the process and they feel really bad that they spoke Lashon Hara and they know it's wrong and it's in their heart. But we all know that over the next year, there's a good chance that I will slip and make that comment.
So is
again.
that Echti Yashuv? Is that your question? Is that Echti Yashuv?
Well, the question is Yodeh Talumos. So yeah, I really feel bad and I really don't want to do it again. But maybe it's not Shuva Gemura because this leaves open the possibility that I know that if I'm in the same position, I might slip again.
Okay, but you're not hearing me completely. What I'm saying is the Yodea Talumais will be made on me when I've done the inner work ad kedei kach that I found out why I'm speaking Lashon Hara and I've dealt with it, or why I kill people, or why I tend to insult people, or get angry, or eat treif, whatever it might be. It's found the nekuda pnimi of might be rebellion or Yetzer Hara or psychological trauma, and I'm dealing with that, and then even if a person doesn't go through that, so the chances of not repeating the Aveira are very, very little, and that's what the Rambam speaks about earlier. You can have charata and you can have Kabbalah, you can die. There's all kinds of things that can happen, but you haven't become an ish shalem in terms of tshuva, to the point of, like, if I do another chet like this, it's a whole new thing. That's a whole new process. It's not even the same process, because ani ish acher v'lo yoiso ish shechata, as the Rambam says later. Now,
okay, but we can get to that level. But let's be real. So we know that some things on our list, we did the steps last year for it, and we were really there.
Didn't do
but
it
we
well
know
enough.
that I'm going to slip. I'm going to slip again. So are we makabel that I'm never going to speak Lashon Hara again?
I'm not saying that one's makabel anything. I'm not saying. I'm saying, of course, you're not going to speak. You're makabel. You're not going to speak Lashon Hara, and of course, but I'm saying simply that the Rambam is saying that if you do the correct inner work, you will not speak Lashon Hara again. It is a fact. You will not. You can, if you figure out why it is I lose my temper. If you really figure out and deal with it, that could take a year or 2, 3 years. I don't know. Maybe it's a life work, like the Rambam says. Once you've dealt with it, okay, you are cured. You're clean. You're cured. You've gotten to the, it's a sort of like a, it's a functional type of a thing, because like the distinction is made in the medical world between a doctor who treats symptoms and a doctor that figures out why you're getting those symptoms to begin with. So yes, you can take this medicine, that medicine, maybe even be cured, But the question is like, why did this happen? You know, why did this happen to you? Which most doctors are not trained to go that deeply into it. So it's like a functional medicine type of idea. You know, but once you've solved the real motivator of the chet, or the real you know, reptilian brain part of the chet, and why am I falling? Why did I fall into this? Where did this come from? So yeah, you'll never do it again. So, you know, like Jonathan, you have to just get over the usual yeshiva charade of Echti Ashuv, and I'm going to do the chet again, and I'm my real, yes, you're never going to do the chet again. Forget about that. If I've done something wrong, I've become a Baal Tshuva, and I'm never going to do the chet again if I've gone through this process.
It seems like just the fourth step is just a practicality, a practical step. The first three are of Teshuva. That's just a practical step. Because if you let's say had some trauma in your past life, then and you do it's not an excuse for doing an Avera.
Right.
Just because you've had the trauma.
So it's like safeguarding that you shouldn't do it again.
Correct. Yeah, it's practical.
But it's all under the paragraph of Mahi Chuva.
Yeah, it ensures for the future.
Right. So, which is part of Chuva is like deal with it from the past. But look at this. Let's go a little bit further and finish the Rambam. Rambam says, yeah.
Can I ask something before you go weiter?
Yeah.
So, I don't understand why in the stages that the Rambam is presenting, the time element seems to be a little bit out of whack, because we have Aziva Sechet, then we have Hasar Makshavto, then we have what we call Kabbalah Asi, Yigmor Belibo, Shlo Yaseh. Then the fourth thing is Nachem Ala Avar. Now, shouldn't it be that first of all, you have to be Nachem Ala Avar before you can be Mekabo Ala Asi? Because if you don't regret what you've done, then what does it mean that you're accepting upon yourself that you're never going to do it again?
So the answer is it doesn't mean regret. Listen to what I'm saying. Of course you regretted it a long time ago. Otherwise you wouldn't be doing tshuva. But what he's saying is don't regret it, solve it, heal it. Yisnachim al shavar, it was the diuk of the lashon Yisnachim, is now deal with it. You've taken care of it behavioristically and even mentally, but now deal with it. It's a much deeper thing.
And that's done after Kabbalah Allah.
Only after. You can't do this while you're doing, you know, the first step is you can't do this while you're still doing the chet or while you're still thinking about the chet all the time. It's the wrong time to do it. First get rid of the chet. And then get rid of the real chet.
And I think the other interesting thing is that the vidui, which until now I had always thought of vidui as an admission of the past. But
you told me not to go weiter, and you're going weiter. Let's go weiter.
Okay.
The last step is you have to do vidui. That's the final step. And say articulate all of these inyanim which you did inside. So this is fascinating because you can do that first, like everybody says. Just do it first. First thing is to acknowledge, say it, call a spade, as Ephraim said. No, what happens is I'm starting with behavioristically. I'm moving to mentally. I'm moving to Gemiras Halev. I'm moving to really dealing with the past and figuring it out, even if I don't do the Saber anymore, even if I'm too old to do the Aver or whatever. And now everything this whole process that I've gone through from outside to inside has to be articulated. Why? Because if I don't articulate it, it's not complete. It's not real. It's not substantial. It's not something like when you articulate something, it's you brought it into this world in a real way. Like Rabbi Smachshavish Bleivish. You can think a lot of things and go through a lot of Hirhurei Tshuva and working on things, all kinds of that. But so here you see, let's call vidui not a confession and not an admission, but a vidui is, it is all those things, but a vidui is an articulation of what? Not even of my chet. Look what he says. Should say your chet. No. I have to have vidui of my thoughts. Isn't that a pella? The Rambam doesn't say you should do vidui achet. He says it in Parak Aleph, and here he doesn't say it. Taflu b'vela. The answer is that so like everybody probably has this problem. Like you say vidui on Erev Yom Kippur and Mincha. You say vidui again at night. You say vidui again in the morning. You say vidui again in the afternoon. You say vidui again in the. So why do I have to say so many vidos? The answer is that each vidui is a siyum on wherever I'm holding in the process of tshuva at that time. So I've gone through Elul, it's Erev, I've gone through Rosh Hashanah, I've gone through Aseres Yemei Teshuva, say vidui. I've gone through Ma'ariv, say vidui. The vidui is the cap, the siyum, of everything that I've had to, that I've gone through. It's not a vidui of the chet. It's an articulation of my process.
It's what you said earlier. It's all about the person and the process he's going through. Until this moment, everything he's done have been dvarim shebalev. And now he's being told that he has to verbalize it. He has to take it out of his live, and he has to bring it into the reality of whoever he is at that moment.
Right.
He has to admit, again, I don't want to use the word admit, but he has
articulate,
to verbalize
articulate
it. Right. And it has to become real, not just a thought.
Right. And, like all of us know, I mean, it's no big chiddush that, you could have a lot of thoughts, but until you speak it out, it's not a finished thought. You have to, some say like in the Gemara, ksiva kedibar dami, maybe if you write it, it's good enough. But pashtus is when you speak something out, so that's what finishes the deal. So yeah, but look at Halacha Gimel. Let's just do the first line, and then I'll let you go. It's 10 o'clock. Let's say, look at this. Let's say you do it the other way around. The Rambam says, Kol hamizvada b'devarim. Let's say you start with the vidui. You say verter, but like gamar b'liboy lazav, but you never went through the gemiras hachet, gemiras halev. So let's say you've switched the whole thing around. I'm saying vidui, but I didn't really go through any process, which is, I guess, what most of us do. So you can't do tshuva while you're saying al chet. It's not enough time there. This is a process. So what happens to the guy who is misvada b'dvarim v'lo gamar b'liboy lazav? If he jumps to the vidui without the gemiras halev, he doesn't go through the process. Haresa doimel l'toivel b'sharas biyada. You know what you're doing? You're doing vidui and saying al chet shechatasi, but the chet's still inside of you. The inner sheretz, it's a mashal to make voice. No, the inner sheretz, the reptilian brain, is still inside of you. So what's has to go with Katan? What did you do? So the Rambam. This is exactly the Rambam saying exactly what Mike shot in the Rambam. If you don't go through the process and you just say, I have sinned, okay, so you're walking around with an inner sheretz. And not only do you become, as the Rambam, not only do you become tahor and then you become tamei again because you're holding on to the sheretz. No, you don't become tahor to begin with. Garnished, like nothing happened. The Rambam is meduik in halach. I think Reb Chaim Brisker makes it. Eina tefila moyelas layad sheyashlich hasheretz. Now says the Rambam, the next thing, now there's another thing, you have to detail the chet, which I pointed out is a machlekes in the Gemara, whether you have to be pirate the chet. Rabbi Kiva said no, And Rabbi Yehuda said yes. So the Rambam passed in Sorech Lifrei Tesachet, Shnemer Ona Chata Amazeh Chata Gedol V'Yasel Anali Hazav. A specific chet of Egel Hazav that was mentioned there. But this is, I believe, this is another chidush here. I believe this pirutachet is a next step after vidui. First of all, you have to articulate Masha Gamar Beliboy, as he says at the end of Halacha Beis. Now, there's another thing that which is Ana Hashem. We say all kinds of lashonis before we say al chet. And then there's another thing of pirut achet that I specifically have to mention the chatoim that I've done. That's the last step. We have 7 steps of Chuva. And I think we got to lose the idea. By the way, Rabbeinu Yonah has 21 steps of Chuva. So this should not come as a surprise that the Rambam has so many steps. But it's not, I think, like it's always said, I'm going to articulate what I said at the very beginning. It's not what I originally said, that people say that, okay, 3 halakim, Kabbalah al-Osir, Charat al-Avar, Vidui. It's not that, it's not only the wrong number, but it's the wrong gisha. Because the gisha has to start min achutz and work its way into the pnim and then back out again to make it reality. Okay. Thank you for listening. I wish everyone a good Shabbos. Shabbos is also Shiur on Chuva. It's a little bit different in Yanim, but everybody's welcome to come. At 5:15 is Mincha, but Sugyas of Chuva. I wish everyone a good Shabbos. Saturday, Motzei Shabbos is Slichos.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Shkaya.